Hi, I'm Emily from the Oakview Branch Library,
I'm Joe from the Ronning Branch Library.
and we're here today to talk to you about some good books. We picked one book from 3 different categories, and we are going to talk about why we like them, why we'd recommend them to you. Our first category is nonfiction. You want to start?
Yeah, you bet. So I thought about first starting with something that was true crime. Some good ones I read in the last year: "Devil in the White City" by Eric Larson, or "Killers of the Flower Moon" by David McGran. I realize that's probably just a little too dark right now.
Agreed.
Just yeah. So the book that struck me was called How to Be a Good Creature by Cy Montgomery. It is a book. It sort of tells the story of her life through the animals that have been a part of it. She's very much an animal lover. You might know her if you've read The Good Pig, or a more recent book by her is The Soul of an Octopus, about a friendship she made with an octopus in an aquarium. It is, in some parts, a sad book, but not in the same fashion. I think ultimately it's an affirming and enlightening, all in all, a very uplifting book. It's books, pigs to dogs to an octopus. It's great. There's an anecdote from it that really made me feel a kinship, which is when she was a child, she could never remember friends of her parents or neighbors. So her mom would have to remind her they're the ones that have the dachshund. And I know my neighbors' cats and dogs' names before I can generally remember their own. So that stuck with me. The ebook is on Cloud Library, and the audiobook is on RB Digital.
Awesome. So I also tried to pick something a little lighter in the nonfiction category. Yeah. I went with Scrappy Little Nobody by Anna Kendrick. So if you like the Anna Kendrick movies that she's in, you'd also like her book. It is available on RB Digital Audio. Cloud Library is an ebook, but it has a holds list, so you might have to wait a bit. And then if you want it, we do have it in the physical collection if you want to get it after we open. It's hilarious, and I'm not a big fan of audiobooks in general. I'm very picky audiobook listener. Mm-hmm. But this one was hilarious because it's like she's talking to you and not reading a book. It's perfect. So I have prepared a list of reasons that Anna Kendrick and I would be friends based on things that I read in Scrappy Little Nobody. Would you like to hear them?
Yeah, you bet.
Okay, here we go. Item number 1, she loves lists. Yeah, yes, I made a list.
You got a list right there.
Exactly.
It fits.
Item number 2, she looked like Shirley Temple when she was little, and I used to watch Shirley Temple movies with my grandma.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Number 3, she grew up in Maine, the state of Maine, and I once visited Maine.
This is true.
Yes. Number 4, she liked the Babysitters Club growing up, and she really admired Claudia's fashion, and she was quite fashionable. The next one is she hates the cold, and so do I. Apparently filming the 4th Twilight movie was like being in a freezer. She was very cold, especially the wedding scene. And lastly, she didn't have to alterate her behavior because of the paparazzi once they started following her. She just stays indoors all the time, so they didn't really have anything.
She's an introvert?
Yeah. And I really relate to that right now.
Yeah.
She's not going anywhere.
Everyone's forced to be an introvert.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah.
Next category is fantasy.
Yeah. So with fantasy, I will start talking about the book Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. It came out last year. It's a little older. I see it just won an award from LA Times. Some book award. Anyway, it's a very different book. So I do have an alternate recommendation. Not everybody can get into it. It can be a little hard to take at times. It is a fantasy book set in an African setting, not your traditional European setting. And it's not like a European style fantasy book with African like tropes. It's very much draws on like African like oral folklore and storytelling. But it can be pretty hardcore at points.
It seemed a little slow moving to me. I didn't make it very far.
Yeah, I mean, there's some raw scenes right in the first few pages, so that's not everybody's cup of tea. If you're missing Game of Thrones, if you're wondering if there'll ever be another book, or you're just over it because of how the show ended, whatever, I will recommend. Shout out here to my friend Jared for recommending them to me in the first place. The First Law books by Joe Abercrombie. The first book is called The Blade Itself. It's sort of similar in that magic's not a huge part of it. It's very subtle. It's got some of the politics and things that Game of Thrones does, but it's a very world weary, dry sense of humor. It's not as like epic in language. It's very regular people living in this world in their voice. And every book gets better. He plays a genre. Some of the later books in the series, he mashes up a Western with a fantasy. Every single one gets better, and they're not on screen, but they should be. Black Leopard, Red Wolf is on Cloud Library. Blade itself is as well. And what did you pick?
I picked Stardust by Neil Gaiman. Definitely one for people who aren't as into the intense Black Leopard, Red Wolf.
Yeah.
So this is more accessible, I guess, to someone who hasn't read fantasy before. And it's also a movie, which is delightful. That's the reason I read this book. It's good for fans of The Princess Bride. Yeah. And it is about Tristram Thorne. And in order to wed his beloved Victoria, Tristram sneaks...
The extra R gets you there.
It does. In the movie, they took out the extra R. His name was just
smart.
Tristan, so I'm really trying to say it the book way. So
Wise.
I'm going to try again.
Okay.
In order to wed his beloved Victoria, Tristram sneaks over the ancient wall to retrieve a fallen star, which he will present to Victoria. And it's well written, it's imaginative, it's got romance, so I really recommend it. It's a good one. And then you can watch the movie once you're done reading the book.
True. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah. It is an ebook on Hoopla, and we also have it in our physical collection if you want to wait for it.
Cool.
Graphic novels are last.
Okay. For graphic novels, probably our best resource that we have at the library is Hoopla. It's got so much stuff on there, if that's your thing. I never really used to be a reader of these, but in the past, I don't know, 10 years, 15 years. By and large, the best thing I could recommend off of there right off the bat there are omnibus editions that collect all of the Hellboy books by Mike Mignola. I can't sing the praises of those enough. The movies are, generally trash. Don't compare it to those. There's lots of pulp influence from authors like Robert E. Howard, H.P. Lovecraft, Manly Wade Wellman, William Hope Hodgson. You might not know those names, but I guarantee you are a fan of something that was inspired by those. Also, it's mythology and folklore, so you have this mix of pulp with these like epic, underpinnings of story. There's authors have written introductions to the series, Alan Moore, Will Eisner, but also literary authors like Jane Yolen or Joyce Carol Oates. Guillermo del Toro is a big fan, the director, Oscar-winning director. That's why he directed, I think, the first 2 movies. But yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
My graphic novel is a historical book. It's by George Takei, and it's about his time in the internment camp. So it's kind of a memoir autobiography as well. It's a part of the Hoopla Bonus Borrows program, so it won't count against you to check out on Hoopla, which is nice. If you run out of Hoopla checkouts, you can still access it. And we also have it in our physical collection, but it has a holds list, so you'd really have to wait for that one if you didn't want to access it digitally. The art in it is really beautiful. It's engaging. It's a great way to learn about history because it's from his memories.
Who's the artist on that? Do you know?
I don't know. Okay. I'd have to look. But it's a good mix of history and a personal story. So, and I don't think it's too dark for these times because it's the way he writes it.
Yeah. It's an important lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Things to know even in dark times.
Yeah. So, if you need any personal recommendations, we have a service now called Book Butler. You can go to our website and fill out a brief survey, and you'll get some personal recommendations.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Check it out. Thanks.